Council member, this is Lisa Weber, City Planning. We do have a representative from LAHD here as well.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Emma Garcia, and I'm a senior management analyst with housing. Could you repeat the question?
Well,
Just a response to city.
well, in general, that's the first question.
Yeah.
We can start getting more specific. I was first opening it up for general discussion on that, but part of this is not, as I understand, is based on when the evictions were called for. Was it? And I believe, I'm sorry, what was your name again from Mr. Martinez? Was that
Howard.
Emma, or was Howard? Did you state that it was 12 months in advance?
The evictions were started, well, the LSAC process was started during the entitlement process. Traditionally, tenants are given 6 months after the beginning of the LSAC process. Because we have qualified tenants who are allowed to ask for a longer period of time, they were given a year. So the date to leave would have ended on February 5th, 2024. But that process, that notice case has been dismissed, but it was started during the entitlement process, which is our concern.
So it's not the concern of the current, the time period that you were reflecting was the moving forward timeline, but I believe the timeline Howard was referring to was the original Ellis Act potential violation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I believe, sorry, this is Yamila speaking from City Planning for the record. I believe Emma Howard also from CD13 also mentioned that under the Ellis Act, the property owner may file a notice to withdraw, which was that February 5th, 2024 date, at any point to remove the units from the rental market, and the timing of the notice to withdraw is not dependent of any timelines in the Housing Crisis Act or the Planning Department's review process.
You should see this thing.
The notice to withdraw.
Yes.
Into
The
the
Ellis forms, this is Emma Garcia with housing.
Glass.
So I do believe, and I do agree with Emma Howard, that we do have two separate laws here with different timelines, and that is a conflict. It's a problem, that's a
straight
challenge.
into the fucking.
On the one hand, you have the Ellis Act, which is state law, which requires that cities allow an owner to withdraw the units from the rental market, and to do that, that's when they file a notice of intent
This
to
is the way
withdraw.
it'll look.
That was filed in
So,
February of
literally,
2024.
Continuous
Under
trains.
the Ellis Act law, an owner must give the tenants a
continuous
minimum of
train.
120 days
It'll
notice to
completely
move
connect
out,
between those
but
two
may
lines.
extend it up to 1 year for disabled or elderly tenants.
It goes in.
Now, on the other side, we have the Housing Crisis
What?
Act, which is also a state law.
8 years.
And under the Housing Crisis Act, it requires a
you're gonna
minimum
downtown.
of 6 months notice to tenants,
Take
instead
the
of
expo
120 days, and instead of a
And stop at
1
this
year
new thing
period.
called the Crenshaw.
So the challenge really has been trying to bring those two laws together and make them work together in a way that complies with those laws.
Fucking bitch.
And what has happened in this case is that when the owner filed the notice of intent to withdraw in February of 2024, he was allowed to do that because under state law, the city has to allow an owner to withdraw units. But was required to give the tenants a minimum of 6 months notice in compliance with the Housing Crisis Act. The challenge is that in addition to the 6 month notice, the Housing Crisis Act also requires that an owner allow a tenant to remain in the unit
It's not gonna work that
until
way.
6
You're
months
gonna fuck
before the
yourself
start
away,
of the
right?
construction
You're gonna fuck
activity.
yourself away.
And that's where there's been a challenge because we don't know that date until it happens. And that's what the planning department is concerned here, that date, as best we can tell right now, would have to be August of 2025. Because the tenants are required to move out in February of 2025. So that's a 6 month period, that's 6 months
I
afterwards.
think they said 2029.
But it's a moving target, there's no way to know exactly what it is. So is it permitted to have an estimate of the date? Did they estimate a date that they were able to do 6 months prior?
We do not have an estimate of the date on the record, other than I think what the owner has responded to the appeal. It was on file with the council, on the council file. Where I believe he estimated 4 months from now, and his willingness to provide another 6 month extension to the tenants. So his estimate, according to the file, is 4 months from now that he could start construction activities.
Colleagues, I don't want to discuss. Ron? Or Jim there? I couldn't tell who's that.
Thank you, Chair. This is a bit challenging because on one hand, we want to have more units, more housing. Under state law, there's a guarantee of providing the same number of rent stabilized units as well, so we know that's not a loss. First of all, so many different questions here involved. So, was there any clear documentation that 2 of the tenants were moved under any form of duress?
Councilmember Vivian, the tenants self-evicted, so they weren't removed forcibly by a sheriff or anything like that, but they pulled back, but they left just because the tax law to them. So they self-evicted.
There's a fucking catch.
Were they compensated in any way?
Solution.
I
Available
assume that
until
they
they have
took some kind
something
of relocation
allocated
camp, but I don't know
in
for sure that might be
2026.
something else.
Those fuckers.
So the owner set up escrow
They're
accounts
still-
where he deposited the relocation amounts to the RSOs for each of the 4 units. And once the owner vacates, they're able to
Right.
withdraw those
The
funds
little
from the
conveyor
account.
belt
So if
motherfuckers
the
are gonna be
tenants
done.
can withdraw,
I wanted to take the
that
conveyor
amount
belt.
when they move out.
I wanted to
And
feel
the
like a
tenants
fucking
that
pig
remain,
going into the slaughterhouse. I
they
wanted to take the
only
conveyor
withdraw
belt.
moving expenses,
And I
so
wanted to
like
go,
security deposits that they might have to pay for the apartment. They would be able to withdraw the full amount once they complete the 80 units. But that money should be an escrow for the
through them, I'm
tenants to
going,
withdraw once they are ready to come out.
and these motherfuckers, buses, and then people are like this. No, and we're all
Because
making
this
house
goes
sales
towards
go
a bigger policy conversation that we have to get at. There's a gap between what the city does and what the state allows, requires.
Oh my god, that's
And
fucking
that
great.
in-between time is when we need to figure out how to assist individuals who are in rent control, rent stabilized units, of how they can afford potentially paying a higher rate. That at least the delta of the difference between what they were paying and a higher rate. But that's a conversation for another time. And I'm trying to say that quickly, so I might not make complete sense, but I'll leave it for another time. Going back to this, if the 2 of the 4 tenants left, given the guidelines that were provided, and that's not the issue. The 2 that remain, we can't substantiate the timeline under which they left, under which they're supposed to leave. So that's why we're having a tough time figuring out when to establish that in order to give the 6-month timeline.
If I may, elaborate on more housing, one of the things to keep in mind is that the owner could and should continue to extend tenancies if he's at a point where he's not confident that he can start the construction within the 6-month period. So now that he has stated on the record in his letter that he believes that will be in 4 months, then really the tenants should not have to move out until March of 2025.
And has this been communicated? Has this been communicated with the owner? What's the work that's been done to see if there's some form of amicable resolution?
This is Yami, I'm speaking with city planning. City planning has spoken with the applicant directly, and they seem amenable to providing the extension of tenancy. And I believe in their presentation today, they also mentioned that they are willing to extend the tenancy. However, I'm not sure, I don't know if the team would like to speak to it, because from my understanding, there may be different dynamics between when we just
because it's tested in the record that both the Ellis Act and the Housing Crisis Act apply. The Housing Crisis Act gives you 6 months to stay until construction, right? For 6 months prior to construction. So if they could construct today, theoretically, right, we would have them out 6 months prior to that. However, the Ellis Act requires that the RSO file an Ellis Act eviction and complete the Ellis Act eviction. One has already been filed and has been dismissed in court. And so the date for the Ellis Act eviction is unknown. And I think this is where we're sort of saying it's paradoxical because we don't know when that RSO right expires. How could we ever know when construction can start? Because you can't start construction in an occupied unit where tenants have RSO rights. So we're in this bit of a loop, which is our concern with this project. And it's a concern we raised repeatedly throughout is that we're playing both, kind of letting the two fight their way out. We run the risk of not complying with the tenant's right to remain. So we're in a very strange place, and I think that's part of why we wanted to have this discussion. We wish that it wasn't such one instrument as a 245, but I think the challenge remains for these tenants. And they would have been out, except that the Ellis wasn't, accepted through the court.
So, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'm asking some of these questions preliminarily because 245 process places a certain definitive timeline with which a decision needs to be made. Now, if we make this decision here, it goes back to council, and this is more of a question maybe for the city attorney, goes back to council, and then at that time, can we potentially continue that item so that it gives an opportunity for a resolution to be arrived rather than to force a certain decision on everyone?
Catherine Miller to the Attorney's Office. Under the 245, council only has 21 days to either veto and remand back to CPC or act on the appeal, step into the shoes of the City Planning Commission and act. So council should not continue this item. You can veto and remand back to CPC, or you could take, I think the second option that the council, Ms. Howard identified would be to deny uphold the appeal in part, deny it in part by adding really approving the project as it was proposed, but adding a condition that the applicant would comply with the Housing Crisis Act and allow the remaining tenants to remain in the units, their units, until 6 months before they start construction demolition. And that would be a minimum 6 months, but they need to comply with the Housing Crisis Act. And that's an obligation they do have right now. But I think the issue that the council member raised, that whether or not the tenants know or not, seems like an important point. Have the tenants been told they have a right to remain if the developers, needs to comply with the law? And that's where it seems like there was some confusion. They were told they had to leave, but were they told they could stay?
Okay, but if they have their attorneys procured, has that information not been provided, and are they not aware of their rights at this point?
Councilmember Nazarian, this is Emma Howard, for the record in response. The attorney that our office referred them to helps them through the Ellis Act case. The attorney is not an affirmative defense attorney. They don't work on the housing crisis issues. They just help them with the Ellis case. We just said we have a time with an Ellis case and we help them. So the discrepancy in terms of knitting these two things together, that attorney is not addressing that issue. They sort of tackle the immediate need, which is an unlawful detainer that was served around the time of February 2025. I'd be happy to, apologies.
Captain Bailey, for City Attorney's Office. One other proposal, if you do uphold and deny in part that condition that they have to comply with the Housing Crisis Act, is you could also require them to notice the tenants within a certain amount of time that they have a right to remain until a date certain.
Can we choose a date certain? Because from what I'm hearing, it sounded like the applicant, and the house can tell me, or we can call the applicant back, was willing to go for a date, a specific date certain. And the concerns from Howard are making sure that they have a 6 months.
Well, Emma Howard, for the record, Councilmember, I think my concern is that if we're complying with both the LS Act and SB 8, you can't start the 6-month clock because of that RSO eviction
So
process.
never started 6 months?
Well, it's 120 days for the LS Act, so theoretically that would encompass 6 months, but we would just need to sort of condition.
Is there a date certain that would make, that you all would feel it works?
I'll be honest with you, their attorney said she's never lost an LS Act eviction.
That's not the question.
So I'm not sure if they went again, if it would necessarily, the court would approve the LS Act eviction at that time.
But are we in an impossible loop? I mean, how can planning approval be dependent on the time of pulling a permit? It just sounds like what you're telling me is there's no way to ever approve this project because we could never get the time. So we have to solve this bigger problem. I was trying to solve it for this one. Maybe if there's a date certain, that you said you're not against the project, you're just against the issues with the tenants, which we all try to protect tenants here. So I would think a solution might be, okay, choose a date.
Well, Councilmember Wright, this actually would be that I would recommend, and this is just me, again, I'm hard for the record. I think it would be a right to stay until 6 months prior to construction, inclusive of completing the RSO, the eviction actions that are up. So they just need to complete that to ensure, so they can notice both at the same time, but should one take longer than the other, that would be the superseding date, whichever is later, I suppose would be the way you would say it.
How long is that? 128 time?
It's 120 for a properly noticed and done LS Act.
And the other one is 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
6 months is longer than 128. Right? So if you said 6 months, then you cover both.
Unless the LS did not get approved by the court, I guess, would be the.
Well, so you're saying it's not to get approved by the court.
I'm saying that this attorney seemed confident that she would prevail. That is not a known thing. I think we can.
Because you also said you're for the project.
We are for the project.
So how do you be for the project? If you're saying the Mills Act will never get completed, I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just trying to understand this. Then you're saying that this project will never go forward.
No, Councilmember, I think, I'm hard for the record again. I think what I'm trying to say is theoretically, provided everything's done correctly, this should move forward, but this attorney is also confident that she has had successes, and so we're not 100% certain should the next round go forward, that it will be within that 6 months, right? It might be a slightly longer time frame. So I think our recommendation would be to approve 6 months or the completion of LS, whichever. At least 6 months or the completion of LS, if that makes sense, Councilmember?
Kind of, but I don't love the uncertainty, but I want to create a pathway. Sorry, I forgot your name.
Yes, this is Emma Garcia with Housing. So I do think it's possible to do both the LS process and the Housing Crisis Act together. It's just a matter of working closely with the owner and the tenants to ensure that if the owner needs more time to get to a point where he can start the construction, that he ensures he gives to the tenants in writing notification that they have more time to move out rather than just the LS 120 days. And I think that's where we're at right now, where the owner could and should provide that extra time to the tenants in writing so that there is a clear record to the tenants of how much time they have to move out. And should the owner feel that he needs even more time, then of course we would recommend the owner provide more than 6 months.
And this was something I thought the owner agreed to.
In the council files, the owners filed a letter stating that they agreed to provide, it was a 6-month extension to the tenants, so that he could begin the construction work, in 6 months.
What am I missing?
I'm sorry?
What am I missing?
I think that's a relatively new development, the owner's offer. That was not an offer previously.
So Ms. Howard, if we were to codify that offer, would that satisfy your concerns?
I think so. I believe that the representative from the Housing Department, Ms. Garcia's suggestion that the 6 months be established with a written deed, and then notice be given if the tenants or the developer need to extend for any period. So just accepting that there is a possibility it might extend past that 6-month period.
Okay. Noted that we do this on the fly, but so how would we put that in form of a motion on this? And I'm happy to call up the, in fact, why don't the applicant, if you could come forward to the microphone, I want to make sure that this is also, you've agreed to 6 months. If we can come up with something that just land this plane. It's an oddity with the applicable law. I'd like to get that squared away, I get squared away. If you agreed to 6 months, is that correct? Could you turn it back on?
Yes, we do agree to 6 months extension. However, you can figure out what to write, how to write it, will comply.
Okay, thank you. Okay. City Attorney, any idea of how to put that together? So if we were to approve it with a condition, is that, and Ms. Howard, would that work for your office? We approve with a condition that 6 months be put in writing, that the tenants have basically notice for 6 months, and it should, the other piece that you suggest on that, is should there be a change in that there be notice to the tenants?
Yes, council member. And secondly, if the tenants are subject to both the HCA and the LS Act, that they be entitled to both those relocation amounts. Or whichever is greater.
And I need an explanation with it. But City Attorney?
Maybe the language could be that they need to comply with the Ellis Act and the Housing Crisis Act in full. I'm not sure the amounts, if there's a requirement that one pays more, you still have to comply with that, so. Is that what you want, compliance with the Ellis Act and Housing Crisis Act?
Happy to put that into this motion, because by law, they have to comply with the Ellis Act. They have to comply with both. That is the law, the state law. We have to follow state law. If it makes you more comfortable, I'm happy to add that into this motion in compliance with all state laws, including Ellis and Housing Crisis Act. So, I'll ask the city attorney to help me with this motion, but I think what we're getting to is approval of the City Planning Commission subject to 6 months, agreement for 6 months, tenancy for the tenants, and notice should they be, should that need to be extended. Am I missing anything?
Kathy, going to the Attorney's Office, I would just add that, so the action would be to uphold the appeal in part, deny in part, uphold all actions by the CPC with the modification to add a condition that was just stated.
Okay. Perfect. I'm not going to restate it. Anyone else have any comments or questions on that? And that works for Howard, that works for the Housing Department, that works for planning. That works for everything. We've landed a solution. And that works for the applicant as well. And the tenants. Yay. Okay. Let's vote on it.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Aye.
Ms. Hutt. Mr. Nasserian. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Ryan. That's 4 ayes. Ms. Ryan is aye.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And will you confirm that that clears the desk?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that clears the desk of the items. Now we move to general public comment. If there are any members of the public here who wish to speak on general public comment, we will have 1 minute. Please line up on the left side of the chamber. Your left, my right.
Thank you. All right. So we are here for general public comment, and boy, what a story do I have for you. If you haven't read the Michelle McGinnis case, there's a memo right in that case where Heidi herself admits, we at this office do not prosecute corporate defendants. Period. Why would she say that? Well, it turns out, interestingly enough, Heidi Feldstein Soto has a very long, intrepid history for working for the same accounting firm that was used by Enron to commit massive, wide-scale fraud. And quote, in Heidi's own words, all it takes is one misdemeanor conviction. That's all it takes, just one misdemeanor conviction. Well, she's right. And this is who you have running the prosecutorial and enforcement of not only when it comes to prosecuting developers, but all sorts of other criminal acts. The clear political support that Heidi has from members like Scientology and other criminal gangs is very obvious. So shame on you, Heidi.
Thank you. Mr. Spindler, you're going to get the last word today. Sure. Please.
She was chicken. She was afraid that you were going to vote no on the house. So, in the federal court this morning, I got the witness list for the upcoming Alliance trial. Yes, we have 2 city council members going to be called as witnesses. Tracy Park and Monique Rodriguez. Let's give them both a hand. So you see, those are going to be the 2 that are going to the feds first. Now, what are they going to say? And why would the plaintiffs be calling them? And then, of course, Mayor Bass is also on the witness list. And she says she doesn't want to testify now. Do you know that I have a transcript where the judge says he has the personal cell phone number of the mayor, and she has his personal cell phone of the mayor? Talk about ex parte bullshit. Stay tuned. Fuck the city council, and fuck you guys. You're going to prison.
Thank you for that finale. For our meeting, it's always entertaining and wonderful. Okay, so.
Oh, you missed it. Hold on, I got a special photo for you. You got to see this.
You were at that case all day today, Spindler?
Sleeping.
Hey, dude, these meetings are long, bro.
Dude, it was the time when he had the public comment of like 10 people where they were pleading to not build.
No, today?
Today, bro, literally. They were crying and telling him, please, our houses got burned. He's like, I'm gonna fall asleep.
How come you don't have a ban on the N-word? How come? I thought you were going to ban those 2 horrible words. Are you supporting the N-word now? Is the N-word considered proper speech? If the N-word isn't proper speech, how come the National Guard remained alone in the land of this city of Los Angeles? So what? See, Bob's nothing but a big chicken.
I caught you sleeping, Bob. The whole Twitter universe knows about it.
Yeah, we caught you sleeping, Bob. We got the picture showing you sound asleep.
You were sleeping when those people were pleading for their houses too, man. What a disgrace.
You fell asleep, Bob, at item number 7. I thought you were going to ban the N-word. You were supposed to have people arrested that use the N-word, Bob. Where's my N-word motion, Bob? Where'd it go? What happened to the N-word motion, Bob? You don't think I'm going to say it today, Bob, do you? Should I say it with a soft R? Maybe a soft R or a hard R?
Hey, what did the judge say over there? What was it, Judge? What's that guy's name?
Carter.
Carter.
Yeah.
That guy ain't gonna be able to hang on to this case much longer, dude. No way. No way, dude. This guy's like 100.
Everybody wants to know where the transcript is, where he says he has Bass's cell phone number. They destroyed it. Too bad I have a copy of it.
Oh, you have access to
Don't you try to have the transcript.
it? We'll take you for Taco Tuesday.
What? Transcript. Illegal ex parte.
I actually, so I want to hear the story of the transcript.
The what?
This transcript. That, which judge was it that admitted to having the contact info?
Well, they fucked up. About a year ago, Bass was all goody fucking two shoes and calling up the fucking judge and calling him on his cell phone and everything to work out this bullshit with this homeless thing. It's like, we want to work with you, Judge. So then they had a hearing, and then they says, well, you know, we talked to you, and we talked to the mayor, and the mayor talked to me, and we went down to Skid Row. Then the judge went down personally to Skid Row. He held a hearings down at Skid Row at one time. Now, I tried to go down there, it was open to the public, almost broke my fucking arm when I tried to go to Skid Row, because they packed the whole place with all the little assholes, all the little non-profits. So, anyway, so they got mad, the city, and they wanted a fucking transcript, and so they had a transcript published. So on the transcript, it says, you know, you have my personal cell phone number and I have yours.
As in Carter?
Yeah.
Said, okay, wow.
So that's illegal ex parte communications. So Carol Sobel, the famous First Amendment attorney, she intervened in the case. There's some other people that intervened in the case. And so these are property owners suing the city to clean the sidewalks. So what's winding up happening is they were going to get a fucking big payday, big attorney fee payday. Carter switched the script. So Carter's like, wait a minute, no. I want to actually have the city out of its own pocket build 6,000 beds for these homeless drug addict motherfuckers. And they says, yeah. You mean we can, Bass is like, we have another lawsuit. There's a county paying part of it. We can use those beds, there are 2,400 beds, and use them in this one. So they wanted a closed session to talk about how they can use these same beds for two different things. And they said, sure. So they filed it. And Carter says, well, what the fuck is that? No county money. No state money. Has to be 100% funded out of the city's general fund. Can't be any matching funds. All those wraparound services and everything, it's got to be 6,000 beds, 6,000 available for people homeless on the streets. It's got to be done within a certain amount of time. They promise to do it within a certain amount of time. They will not get any credit for anybody paying for any other beds. And that's where the thing exploded. That's where this whole fucking, now everybody wanted the defense mode. Where are they going to get the fucking money for that?
Yeah.
Where are they going to get the beds? Now it's not, oh, you called me on my phone on the weekend, I called you. No. Now it's fucking, line's been drawn in the fucking sand now. So now, Bass was called, is listed as a witness. She don't want to testify now. She don't want to talk on that stand now. She don't want to say shit now. And Monique Cow, Cunt Regas, and Tracy Parr were named as witnesses. And of course, they want to go up there. They want to go up there and match. Oh, they'd love to take the stand. Talk about how their districts were cheated out of homeless funds. How the beds weren't fucking filled. How they fucking lied to them. Monique Cow especially. Monique Cow's termed out next year. She can't fucking run again. So she's more than willing to rat their ass out. That's what she's been doing every day. That's why she got punished and taken off all the important committees.
Oh.
She's an absolute disaster. So anyway, there was a motion that was filed. The hearing, I'll find something happened today on it. You know, they tried to continue it till Thursday,
that was denied. Apparently, they held it today, 9 a.m., across the street. And to see if the fucking city was lying to the judge about those beds, or if they were trying to shift the numbers around to stuff that didn't qualify. And we already know they shifted the numbers, not the street, because we had Matt Szabo and other people in the city family that I heard conversations saying they could use these beds, and Nithya, that fucking little sneaky Nithya, you know, in her committee. Well, if these beds were funded by the county and the city jointly, and the city paid most of it, the county paid a little bit of it, well, why can't we use those as part of that 6,000? We're paying for it. So they tried. Judge Carter said no. It has to be 100% city funds. Not sharing, not using somebody else's beds. And then the county pulled out a lawsuit. Now that the county pulled out a lawsuit, $340 million is gone now. And the county took the money back. So now, the sharing of the money between LAHSA, the city, and the county is gone now. The county pulled the fuck out of it. Now it's just the city and LAHSA. And the chairman of LAHSA, she quit because she had a nonprofit through a family member. They got a tract, a no-bid contract, in the millions of dollars. Probably gonna get indicted. So now you got Bass, the stupid ass, that's like, what the fuck are you gonna do? So, you know, they need these 6,000 beds. So where are you gonna get 6,000 beds? Now, a bed is a bed. You could have a room with 10 beds in it. You could have a trailer with 5 beds in it. All they have to do is come up with not 6,000 rooms or keys, but beds. And that's where, like the hotel ordinance, where they said you had to have more than 70 beds. That was fucking stupid because hotels get sold by the number of keys they have, not the number of beds. Each key represents a room. They refer to hotels as keys. How many keys does the hotel have? The city put their ordinance on how many beds. So if a hotel has 8 suites that could sleep 6, is each one of those a bed? So they were stupid and didn't write it into the rule. 70 keys. Now, if they had done that, they could have taken the rooms with the keys. You're late! It's over! They finished it. Look, she's late! Wait a minute.
That's Padilla, isn't it?
Yeah! But she's like over, she's
What's this one supposed to be?
What the hell is this? Wait a minute. What kind of evil is this? What kind of evil are we witnessing?
Do you know what committee that is? Do you know what committee meeting? I'm gonna ask him.
Calm down, burnout.
She's got a mouth on her. She got a mouth on her. She's apologized once before.
Oh my God. Calm down, burnout. So she was talking to the hotel office at the end of the meeting, and I was going, she wanted to calm down, burnout. Anytime they get reactions.
Yeah.
Anytime they get reactions.
Well, I'm gonna ask him.
Let's see what's going on.
Yeah. Do you know what committee that is?
Is that a committee? It's a private event.
Oh, it's a private event?
Yep.
Is it city people and then other members of the public?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's a private event.
But why is the city councilwoman
Yeah, why the fuck is the city councilwoman present at a private event, not open to the public? At a public room.
Well, why would they be using a public room and shutting the public out of a public room?
Yes.
With a city councilwoman in there.
Yes.
Why would they not want to disclose what it is? They locked you out, man. So who's the event for?
No, it's already over. No. You know where the results?
Yeah, it's a special invite-only meeting apparently, held in a public room.
What?
It's a special private meeting, but there's a council member in there.
You missed the meeting.
Yeah, that was the meeting that we just had.
Long meeting, it just ended maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, David?
yeah.
What was he?
Like you literally just missed it, just right at the cusp.
Did you want to know about the Hollywood thing?
What was the outcome?
About the Hollywood tennis?
No, about the,
Okay. The last one?
it's the,
Landslide?
yeah,
Okay, the landslide.
Oh
You know
yeah,
about the
so
landslide.
I'll tell you about the
Who
landslide.
knows about the landslide?
I'll actually do you one better. I'll show you what happened at the landslide.
well, it was about developing a place that was in a landslide.
So while people were pleading for the development to not happen, this is what Bob was doing during the entire public comment period.
That's
that
the
motion.
chairman of the committee,
That's the chairman.
Sleeping, huh?
Mr. Sleepy.
Yep.
Good God.
Mr. Sleepy. So they're gonna let him build it.
Yeah.
They're gonna
They're gonna let it do it. They're gonna
I
do it.
figured that was,
Yeah.
it's really, really.
And that's up. And everybody knows those are not conforming roads up there,
Yeah.
and the construction's not conforming. And
And there's no bedrock in that hill.
no,
It's just a big
it's
bedrock.
liquefaction, and when the rains come, every time you have a fire, the vegetation burns away. It takes between 7 and 10 years for that vegetation to start coming back. I've been through 3 of them.
Well, the pleading from the developer was utterly stupid. There was no any factual basis. Literally, the pleading was, "Well, we want it, so just do it."
Yeah.
I was very keenly and intently listening, and there was nothing of factual value offered. It was just plainly, "We want it, just do it." Whereas the people that came to speak against were very clear. They had various research papers that showed the issues of the slide, that showed the lack of any sort of solid foundation, and it was night and day. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a more binary example.
Well, here's what it is.
Yeah, and then now they go under and commandeer the room for some sort of secret meeting.
Yeah, for literally a secret meeting.
And one of the council members just walked in.
Padilla.
And,
Yeah.
so she,
Her.
that one right there. Yeah, so she walks in, and cops lock the door. Nobody will tell us what's going on in there.
Yep.
So they're using our meeting rooms here in City Hall for these secret fucking meetings. Cops are keeping it hidden, the council members are keeping it hidden. We just saw it.
Yeah.
They have to tell us what it is. But they're like, fuck you, whatever, So, this is why more indictments are coming, more search warrants are coming. $2 billion went missing in homeless funds. These are the reasons.
It's also why this guy
It's a culture of
literally almost got himself killed running across the street in the middle of heavy traffic because somebody's trying to ask him a question, and he decided, I would much rather kill myself in active traffic than be asked a question. It was right by the Hollywood station, LAPD station. Literally.
Jumped out into oncoming traffic. Okay?
Yeah.
It's like today, and near one of our businesses, we had a homeless pile of shit today that started putting up a structure with a basket and large things of tire. Truck up, and I throw it in the back of the fucking truck. The whole thing. And I'm like, what? What the fuck? I says, it's trash. So, ah! And I says, the basket belongs to Albertsons. It says Albertsons on it, right? I says, are you Albertsons? No. I says, well, who owns the basket? Well, you don't. I says, correct. I'm returning it to the owner. So I drive the baskets back to the stores, and I took all the shit, and see, they start coming into these streets that we control. See, I have streets that like I have a whole block and a half that I basically cleaned up all the block. And they keep trying to gain turf. Saturday night, they put a tent over a manhole, about 7:30 Friday night. They went into the sidewalk, down into the tunnel, and they pulled fiber optic cable out of the hole and cut. They stole public, they stole AT&T fiber optic cables, 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
These have platinum in them, okay?
That's gonna cut off
It's
service
gonna
from
cut
a
off
ton of people.
it's gonna cut off the whole thing. So anyway, so I come back Friday night before the vacation. I thought, yeah, everybody's gone. Everybody left. I was standing around late, and I had an argument. I had to do some paperwork, and it's about 6. Fuck you, we have to get everything by Tuesday. No, I don't want to do it. My assistant already left. And I says, okay, you dumb fucking asshole. We have a deadline on Monday. Fuck you, no, fuck you. And I says, all right, so I finish it. I have to go back and scan it in and email it. That's why I went back. So I go driving back about 7:15, and I see this fucking tent in this little minivan, this old Toyota minivan. And I'm like, oh, no. Another homeless son of a bitch. So I jump out of the truck, and I lift up the tent, and there's an open manhole. And then this guy crawls up out of the hole underneath the tent. And there's all this black fiber optic cable, and then they're sawing it. Wow. Right? In broad fucking daylight. It's still daylight. And then they're loading it in the back of the van. I call, I go to the car. You gotta be careful. Don't let them see you do it. I call 911. We're sorry. So I'm on fucking hold for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, the Cheech and Chong are finishing up their cutting, and then they load all the shit back. So he leaves the tent, he leaves some of his tools, he leaves the light in the bottom, and he takes a fuck out. I can't get a cop to come out. I got the first 3 numbers of the license plate. Finally, I waved a cop down, and they come out and they go, shit. This is cable theft, guys. No, right? This guy knew about it, so they took and disassembled the tent and put it in his evidence. So they took it and they put it in the squad car. So then Saturday night, I come in, and this guy.
No, it's not.
No, this guy rolls up because the manhole was wobbly. I figured they might have come back, so I looked down there, and the light's off. So they probably did come back and get their light, but then I went down, took some pictures, and some other shit was still down there. So I just sealed it up, so this guy on the scooter thought I was trying to steal a fucking cable. So he said, so it turns out, it turns out that he's a gang member. And he said that he was catching them trying to camp over, and he kicked the shit out of him. So he gives me his phone number, and he says he provides services, like getting rid of homeless. So now you got the gang members giving out their phone numbers to the property owners, 1-800-CLEAN-UP. Now you got that! And I'm like, well, fuck, that's new. I hope they're Cal OSHA compliant. We're riding a scooter with a Rams jersey, and I says, well, I ain't gonna hire nobody with no Rams jersey. I says, I hate the fucking Rams. I says, which team do you like? I says, you figure it out first, motherfucker. I gotta go there. So then I took it and I went back and I shot it. So now another guy comes around, around 1 o'clock today, and he parks behind the building and he says, fuck, it's happening. And then they start putting all their stuff in the back. And they go, yeah, man, what's going on? I says, what are you doing here? No, we're just trying to fix our car. And I says, no, you're not. He says, you're engaging in illegal auto repair. Yeah, no, man, no, listen, man, we don't want any trouble. And I says, you got to get out of the this area, okay? That shit's gotta stop. I says, the owners of the buildings have gotten together and they're putting some money together. They're gonna bring some people in. Well, what kind of people? I said, these are bad people. I don't like them. They're gonna come from fucking Antelope Valley. Okay? And then they says, oh yeah, because, you know, about 5 years ago, I brought a guy, I brought a lowrider Nazi in I let him stay up in my apartment. They came over 5 years ago and shot my fucking windows out at the top floor of my building. And they had a liquor store across the street open, the guy was dealing drugs and getting a percentage. They came and shot the fucking windows up out of the building. They came in, told me to start paying $500 a month. So, you know, my secretary, man, she was on the mind. She had a nervous fucking breakdown. Because the guy pulled the fucking gun out and came inside the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, look. I said, she don't need to be here. We'll talk about it. You try any shit, I said, yeah, you got the whole court of man. Let me tell you how it's gonna be. And I says, and even the fucking guy with him goes, hey, wait a minute, there's something fucking crazy with him, man. You see his fucking eyes? And he says, what? And his friend goes, hey, this is just business. I go, okay, go ahead. What is it that you want to tell me? You're going to pay me $5. I said, no. Is that right? Yeah. I said, okay. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to have to go to my people. I'm going to have to talk to them about this. He goes, what people? I says, bro, you don't know who owns this fucking place, right? Do you know who owns this fucking place? Yeah, I said, bro, I said, I'm just going to say this, man. Just pay me for the damage to the windows, man. And just vacate. Bad idea, man. Vacate. His friend goes, won't pay for the windows, man. He said, shut the fuck up, we're taking it. I says, okay, so you want 500, right? I said, when? Next week. I says, okay, next Wednesday night. I says, I'll be here alone. I says, okay. So we had a new tenant upstairs. So anyway, they says, who's the motherfucker upstairs? I says, that's what I was going to tell you about. He was sent here. Yeah, white guy on a motorcycle. Yeah. I says, yeah, he was sent here. What was he? He was a neo-Nazi. So he goes, I says, yeah. So he goes, you got my $500, and he goes, all right. I says, well, last time you brought a gun in here. He says, there's a sign. I says, did you read my sign? Use a gun, go to prison. I says, yeah. I said, did you read that sign? It says, hablis español. He says, yeah, Spanish. I said, but you understand English, right? So you came in here when my secretary was here, so she was collateral damage. I says, you don't involve innocence. Okay, this is business. You put somebody in the middle, she got very sick. And now I'm not gonna have her for a month. I'm gonna have to pay her basically let the fucking work. And I said, so she don't go with cops. There's not gonna be any cops. Well, that's good. I said, well, yeah, I'm glad you agree with that. I said, so you want it, right? Yeah. And I said, you're sure? Good at that, one up. You know, fucker, you know, yeah, this is fucking cops. No cops, motherfucker. No fucking cops. I said, I swear to fucking Christ, you call fucking cops. And I said, no, your drug sales across the street, fucker. I says, it comes next.
I says, I'm taking the block over now. I says, you fucking day. You fucking day. I says, what's this? What's this? It's a Glock. I said, what the fuck is a Glock? It came out, fucking didn't want to play 30. I says, I got 75 rounds in this pocket. I said, bro, put the fucking silencer on the side of it. I says, no, what you got fucking do? No, please. I says, what? No, I says, what's that? I says, they're urinating, they're pissing their pants. I said, what? I said, no. I says, no. I says, no. I says, now you upset me. I says, now I gotta go into mode. I gotta go into fucking mode. So now, hey, what? It's upstairs. So it's upstairs, playing this fucking loud music and shit. And he opens up that fucking window, I'm in the room with him, you know, and he goes, hey man, it's time for you to leave, man. I'll come back in a couple of days. I said, okay. So, 2 days later, he's in jail. They're in jail.
Good shit.
The owner of the fucking liquor store's in jail.
You want this or not?
They sent 50 fucking cops. They had helicopters. So now that everybody's in jail, everybody's gone, so I have to come and make a bail my guy. So, anyway, swallow resisting arrest, illegal sales of narcotics. I mean, the whole fucking thing, right? So I get my guy out. So now, I got him back in his